In this video, I want to answer the question, why did God harden Pharaoh's heart? Now, I'm going to give you my thoughts that I don't believe he did. Most of the world, including Christians, are woefully ignorant of God's true nature. They run around and say, God's in control and everything that happens for a reason. And if something happens, that means it was God's will and he either did it or he allowed it. And they blame it on verses like this, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart. And they say God can do whatever he wants, just like he hardened Pharaoh's heart. God is sovereign. For example, I did a video a few weeks ago where I said God is in control, isn't in the Bible, and I got this response. So how do you explain God hardening Pharaoh's heart? Or Judas, God is sovereign. It goes on, he sovereignly allowed it because he had a greater desire to display his attributes. Basically what they are saying is God does bad things like harden someone's heart to show that he is good. People are convinced that God is in control and that verses like this proves to them that God kind of just does whatever he wants, whenever he wants. These are the kind of verses that people use, and they are actually twisting scripture and perverting God's loving nature. Peter had this to say in 2 Peter 3:16. It says, there are some things in them, talking about Paul's letter, that are hard to understand, which the ignorant and unstable twist to their own destruction as they do the other scriptures. So people can twist scriptures and misunderstand them to their own destruction. I do not believe that the Bible teaches a God that is just in control of everything, meaning a God that has his hand on everything and everything that happens is a part of his will and is only happening because he wants it. I believe that the Bible teaches a God who sets before us life and death and gives us a choice, and we get to choose, and then he responds to our choices. When we choose life, we get life. When we choose death, we get death, even if God doesn't want that for us. But verses like Exodus 9:12 can be confusing if we don't have proper understanding. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord said to Moses. Well, this verse does say that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. It's right there. He did it, right? He is sovereign and he can do whatever he wants. Okay, but there is one problem with that. Exodus 8:32 says, but this time also Pharaoh hardened his heart and would not let the people go. So which one is it? You really can't have it both ways. If you believe that God hardened his heart, then what do you do with this other verse? You have a contradiction. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let me give you another one, or another supposed contradiction in the Bible. 1 Chronicles 10:14 says, so the Lord put him, speaking of Saul, to death and turned the kingdom over to David the son of Jesse. So this says God killed Saul, but 1 Chronicles 10:4 says, so Saul took his own sword and fell on it. One verse says God killed Saul, another says that Saul killed himself. So which one was it? If you say both, are you insinuating that God made Saul kill himself? See, this is twisting scriptures. People are perverting God's nature and saying that God kills people. It's why people stand up at funerals and say God took them home. What they are really saying is that God killed them. But Jesus said it was the thief who comes to steal, kill, and destroy, the devil. So does the Bible contradict itself? Did God kill Saul, or did Saul kill Saul? If the Bible contradicts itself, then we should throw the whole thing out, and our faith is in vain. Well, the problem is that most English readers do not understand an idiom that is in the Bible. What is an idiom? An idiom is like saying it's raining cats and dogs, or to spill the beans. The phrases don't literally mean that cats and dogs are falling from the sky. It means it's raining heavily. And when someone spills the beans, they didn't make a mess in the kitchen, they gave away a secret. But if you tried to translate these phrases literally to another language that didn't understand our culture, they would be very confused. They would be looking to the heavens wondering how animals fall from the sky. So that brings me to this point. The Hebrew language came with an idiom of permission, meaning that they would often use action verbs to describe something that actually was only permissive. There's a huge difference between me punching someone in the face and allowing someone to be punched. So the verses like 1 Chronicles 10:14 and Exodus 9:12 should be read like this. So the Lord allowed him to be put to death and turned the kingdom over to David, but the Lord permitted the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said to Moses. God permits what we permit. God gave you your life. If you want to jump off of a 10-story building, do you know what the Bible probably would have recorded in the Old Testament? And they didn't acknowledge the Lord, and the Lord killed them from a fall. But it should actually read with the idiom of permission. They didn't acknowledge the Lord, and the Lord permitted them to be killed with a fall. You see, God didn't harden Pharaoh's heart. God is not a mean God looking to punish us. God simply allowed Pharaoh to have a free will and permitted him to harden his own heart and reap the consequences of his own choices. And if you're curious to learn more about this hidden Bible secret about permission, and find out that God doesn't kill, God doesn't strike people, and God doesn't do bad things, click here. And if you want to know why God allows evil and bad things to happen, click right over here, and I'll see you in the next video.